You're listening to Have You Ever Wondered? It is Monday, August 1st, 2022. I'm Chloe, and the title of today's episode is This is Amazing. Oh boy, I do not know what happened to July. Like, at all. But August is the point in the summer where I kind of start to have an existential crisis because August is next to September, and September is where both school and fall start. So, yikes. And that means I've always kind of taken issue with August, but then I also kind of love it because that's when football comes back, which hopefully we're going to be talking about tomorrow. We're going to be talking about it today, but I changed it up, which I do sometimes. And the reason why is because last week I was listening to an interview with the comedian Kevin Hart, and he was talking about how there's this certain, I'm going to call it a cultural sensitivity that sometimes makes it difficult to root for our fellow humans when they start getting more successful than us because we can feel threatened. And that is a serious oversimplification of what he was saying. But as he was giving examples about it, he gave what I consider to be some pretty terrible news. Now, I'm not going to say it was tragic. I'm not going to say it was devastating. But I was saddened by this. So, background. For years, I've been following the careers of these two guys who started out in the Bronx, New York, and they were just like hilarious on Twitter. And this was back when like people would for real go on Twitter, like everyone, because Facebook had already started its slow march toward death. And Instagram wasn't like a thing yet, like it is now. And then like Snapchat was there, but there were only like 12 people on it. So Twitter was getting almost all of the attention. And they would just go on there and tell jokes and make hilarious observations about pop culture and current events and their family and experience and jobs and neighborhood and everything. And every day they'd just be popping off all these tweets. And so they kept getting more and more and more and more followers. And yeah, I was in there, like, once I found out about them, I would go in and they were hilarious. They would make me laugh. And then not too long after that, they started a podcast themselves called the Bodega Boys. Now, in case you don't know what a bodega is, because it's a fairly East Coast urban American concept, which is pretty niche, although there are a lot of things about Western culture that come from that source material. But it's like a corner store. That's what we used to call it when I was a kid. But it's like a little shop that has everything, and it's in your neighborhood, so you don't have to go out to a larger store, like a Whole Foods or a Ralph's or a Walmart or a Target. You could just go down the street to the bodega, to the corner store, and get what you need. And they would just have, like, randomly everything. Um, and so early in their career, during this like Twitter and self-made podcast time, was when I discovered them. And I remember sitting at my computer once because I think they were just like recording it and uploading it to their website. Um, I was just sitting there laughing so hard that I was crying, which is like one of my favorite states of being. And they've never stopped being that funny, but they've stayed so consistent on their like upward trajectory that the venue where they continue to be hilarious has continued to get larger and larger and larger. So after the podcast, they got a little show. I always thought of it as a web series because it was on Vice, and Vice was like one of those small cable networks that you couldn't always get. And also, I didn't have cable because like who has cable? And so, but you could watch it online, like on their website. And so they had that show for a few years while they were still doing the podcast, while they were still doing the tweets. And then after what I heard was maybe a slightly acrimonious parting of the ways between them and Vice, their show got picked up by Showtime, which is a major cable network. And they've been there for the last few years while still doing the podcast, while still doing the tweets. And for most of that time, maybe until they got the Showtime show, also still working their regular jobs. You can correct me if I'm wrong about that. But for a long time during that trajectory, they also had normal jobs, and one of them is married and has children as well. So they were still living their lives while their workload continued to increase and increase and increase, and they continue to be utterly hilarious. Now, their current show is kind of formulaic. It's sort of like what pretty much any late night talk show would be like, which is what it is. It's a late night talk show. They say stuff, they have on a guest, the guest says stuff, they come back, they might do a sketch or a segment, they say some concluding stuff, and they bounce. But it's good. It's the only, and it's so funny. It's the only like chat show or talk show that I would even consider watching nowadays. So back to my original statement, which was that I was listening to an interview with Kevin Hart, and he was giving examples for how difficult it can be to keep creative partnerships together sometimes. Bands, writing partners, music groups, comedy partners. It's just, you have these people working together, and then to the outward observer, what seems to be all of a sudden, they're just not. And then he gave them as an example. I was shocked, obviously. And all the stuff, that little survey I just took you through of their career, maybe took like a decade, probably longer, because that's just kind of the amount of time that I've been paying attention to what they were doing. And their show, which is called Desus and Mero, those are the two guys. Their performing names are Desus Nice and the Kid Mero, is apparently not going to be running on a Showtime anymore. So on Saturday, I was here, I was doing my sister's hair, and so I brought it up. You know, we were watching movies and playing catch up and, you know, all the stuff we do while I'm here doing her hair. And I said, yo, I heard Kevin Hart say that Desus and Mero broke up. Is that true? She's like, yeah, they put something up on the show's Twitter saying they weren't going to be doing it anymore. And I don't have the words to fully explain why. But for some reason to me, it doesn't feel completely mutual. It's kind of giving like when Beyonce left Destiny's Child, or like when Justin Timberlake left NSYNC. Like maybe someone's gotten into the mind of one or both of them, and they now feel like they can do better independently instead of together. Which maybe giving Beyonce and JT were bad examples because they ended up becoming incredibly successful without the groups that helped to launch them. But I don't think you have to always think of those two things as being like mutually exclusive, because there are lots of collaborative entities that function as a group while one or more of the people within the collaboration also have independent projects at the same time. Like, you can make it work. Um, and I guess it kind of like, because they're like so good together. And so it brings me like more than a twinge of sadness to watch people say goodbye to what they were. You know, it happens all the time, but it's still just like, it hurts a little. And it's also a reminder of how temporary things are. And I guess that's not a bad thing either, because it reminds you to appreciate what you have while it's still going on, because you don't know what's going to happen. So after I sort of processed that, the next thing I thought was, well, I'm going to have to cancel my Showtime subscription, because I only have Showtime because of them. And so my sister was like, yeah, you could just play catch up on the episodes that you haven't seen, and then I guess you could get rid of it. And so that's what I started doing yesterday. But it's actually going to be quite a while before I can cancel anything, because, like I've said before, I really don't have time to watch TV, and I'm way behind on their show. But, there's no time like the present. And so I started watching a few, and I ended up seeing one where they had on this actor named Taylor Page, and she was participating in a project that was based on those Zola tweets. I don't know if you guys know what happened there, but this woman wrote like this epic story over the course of 148 tweets. Just like Google Zola tweets if you don't know what I'm talking about. And then it went massively viral, and then someone, I guess, bought the rights and decided to turn it into a movie, and this actor that they had on the show was in the movie. So while they're interviewing her, they're commenting on how she like always presents as like a really positive person, and it's so impressive how she stays so cheerful during the pandemic. And basically she said, I don't want this to sound silly, but I just try to take small things and be grateful for them. Here, let me have her tell you.
You look at the sky, you're like, wow, that shit's really blue today.
Yeah,
you know what I'm saying?
Those clouds. It's the little things.
It's the little things, and it does help. You feel like connected to all of it, and like when you look at how amazing it is, you're like, damn, and I'm a part of it. So even though it feels like, what the hell is going on, you're like, I'm a part of it.
Yeah, just thankful to be here.
And I was listening to her talk, and I was like, man, I do that too. That like so amazing thing. And so they spent a few minutes, and I'll put a link to the whole interview in the description, but they spent a few minutes talking about things that are seemingly mundane, but that you can actually really get excited about. And I was thinking about one of the things that does that for me all the time, which is modern refrigeration. And it's because a few years back, over Memorial Day weekend, my refrigerator broke. And in America, Memorial Day weekend is what they call the unofficial start of the summer. And so like our entire society just sort of dematerializes, because everyone is off like thinking about and participating in all of their potential summer greatness. And unless you're like utterly essential to keeping the economy running or keeping people alive, there is no one around to do anything. And so my refrigerator broke like on the Friday that the weekend started, and my landlords couldn't find anyone who was going to be able to fix it until the following Tuesday. And so I spent that entire weekend without any type of refrigeration abilities. And although lots of people, millions in fact, live like that every day, I have never been one of them. And so it was a brand new experience to me. And after the situation was remedied, um, I've never experienced my refrigerator in the same way since then. Um, I'm I kind of marvel at it every time I open it. um, and there's just so many things that you can do that with. I actually have a little like quote on the background of my notes iPad, the one I usually use for notes, and it says something along the lines of like, it only takes little things to make a happy life. Oh, I have it. Very little is needed to make a happy life. Yes. And that is just so true. Um, and whenever I open it and I just see it sitting there, it reminds me that you can make the choice, depending on how you look at your life, um, to find and maintain um, this baseline level of contentment that can kind of go with you everywhere. Um, and the other thing I liked, and that I really wanted to share really quickly because it's sort of equally as short as the last one, is something that Taylor said real quickly on music.
Meditation, prayer, journaling, reading, music. Like, shout out to musicians. Like, they like heal, I feel. You know, whether it's like I'm listening to John Coltrane to like Robert Glasper to like Lauryn Hill to like I said her name. Like I'm thinking of all the people I've been listening to. Like thank you for whatever you were going through, lending yourself so that like years later I have something that like helped my Tuesday.
Yeah, that was another thing she said that really resonated with me. Obviously, because I am obviously a huge appreciator of the musical arts, but really just like all art in general was kind of what made me think of it. Music, art, literature, and poetry. I had to pick Mary again. I'm a little bit going through one of her older books, and her writing style was slightly different back then, and still so good. And the poem I chose for today is called Everything. I want to make poems that say right out plainly what I mean, that don't go looking for the laces of elaboration, puffed sleeves. I want to keep close and use often words like heavy, heart, joy, soon, and to cherish the question mark and her bold sister, the dash. I want to write with quiet hands. I want to write while crossing the fields that are fresh with daisies and everlasting and the ordinary grass. I want to make poems while thinking of bread, of heaven, and the cup of astonishment. Let them be songs in which nothing is neglected, not a hope, not a promise. I want to make poems that look into the earth and the heavens and see the unseeable. I want them to honor both the heart of faith and the light of the world, the gladness that says, without any words, everything. how she wrote something that fits so beautifully decades ago with what I'm thinking about now. That's like the mystery of true art. To be able to create something that can resonate with another human being no matter when they encounter it. It's such a gift. I wasn't sure if I wanted the point of all this to be like protect your creative partnerships if you want them to last, or if I wanted it to be try to find small ways every day to say, wow, that's so amazing. And then I was like, well, why can't it be both? And it can be. So it is. That's the point of today. Protect your creative space from things that will damage the relationships that it's based on. And find something mundane to be in awe of today and every day. I'll see you tomorrow.